Is the Hoosac Tunnel haunted? Evidence points to the answer for that being yes. Evidence in the form of both recorded experiences dating as far back as the 1860s, and the simple fact that 196 people died tragically building this tunnel. If that doesn't make something haunted, then I don't know what does. Last time we talked about those men, as well as the abundance of tragedy that struck the construction of the Hoosac Tunnel in various forms, leading to it being eventually given the nickname by the workers of Bloody Pit. But what I didn't tell you last time is that only 195 of those deaths can be written off as workplace accidents. That's right. One death, ladies and gentlemen, was a clear-cut case of murder. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here at the Hoosac Tunnel, but it's nighttime, and it's freezing cold out still. We've got Owen Fitzgerald, we've got Steve Huber, and we've got cameraman Ryan Leahy. We're gonna go into this tunnel, we're gonna see if we can see anything, we're gonna see if we can hear anything, if we can smell, taste, feel, and the sixth sense, if we can just feel again, but in a different way. That's what people talk about. They talk about hearing something, and they talk about this thing that just infects your brain, a feeling of dread. Let's see if that's there. The year is 1865. Explosives experts Neil Brinkman, Billy Nash, and Ringo Kelly have stayed after hours to test out a new type of explosive. Two of the men, Nash and Brinkman, set to work planting the charge in the tunnel. It will never be known what exactly occurred in this next moment, but somehow, Kelly, a safe distance away from the charge, set off the explosion too early. Nash and Brinkman were unable to escape the blast radius and were buried alive under tons and tons of rock. Recovery was impossible, and Nash and Brinkman died in the accident. And here is where things move from tragic to mysterious. Shortly after this incident, Kelly, the man who detonated the charge, disappeared. He didn't show up for work, none of his friends and family had any idea where he went, he'd seemingly up and vanished. A full year would go by before Kelly would be found. And where was he? 2 miles into the tunnel, strangled to death in the exact spot where Nash and Brinkman had perished. Local police came and investigated, but the killer was never found. For the workers of the tunnel, the answer was simple. Kelly had been killed by the ghosts of Nash and Brinkman. Around the time of this event, the workers also began to report feelings of great unease and dread when they were within the tunnel. Some of them eventually would refuse to even enter, reporting hearing strange screaming-like noises despite no one else being around. This got so bad and put such a halt on construction that the project leads brought in outside help. In an 1868 letter to his sister, an engineer writes, "The men constantly complain of hearing a voice cry out in agony, and they refuse to enter the great shaft after nightfall. Our work has slowed to the point where I've been asked to conduct an investigation into the matter. We entered the tunnel at exactly 9 p.m. We traveled about 2 miles into the shaft and then stopped to listen. As we stood there in the cold silence, we both heard what truly sounded like a man groaning out in pain. When we turned up the wicks on our lamps, there were no other human beings in the shaft. We agreed that it wasn't the wind that we heard. Perhaps Nash and Brinkman, I wonder?"
I saw that once here.
Where?
Oh my God, geez.
Wait, let's just listen. Let's just listen for a second. They honestly say that you hear things. There's been a lot of people hearing things, not so much seeing stuff happen. 5 miles. So strange to think this is just 5 miles, just this.
I don't know if we could walk 5 miles in this.
No. Do you hear any screaming?
Oh.
Hello?
Whoa, who's that guy over there?
Don't say that. Gosh. lot of Jane. Someone named Jane is prominent here. What are you doing here, Jane? Jane, why do you feel like you have to put your name all over the Hoosac Tunnel? Let's take a look into another specific bloody event in the tunnel's history. October 17th, 1867. In the process of digging out the 1,000-foot exhaust shaft straight up from the midpoint of the tunnel, a candle ignites fumes loose in the air from a gas lamp and sets fire to the ropes of the hoist system they're using to elevate her from the bottom to the top. Quickly engulfed in flames, the hoist collapses downwards into the shaft. 13 men located at the bottom are trapped by the structure. During the collapse, water pumps located at the bottom are damaged as well, and the shaft begins to slowly fill with groundwater. A man by the name of Mallory volunteers to be lowered down into the shaft to locate and communicate with the 13 trapped men. They lower him down, and nothing. They wait, yell after him, no response. They pull the hoist back up to find Mallory barely conscious, overcome by the explosive fumes that fill the shaft. As they rush to his aid, Mallory works up the strength to mutter, "No hope," before passing out. And the final event that I want to bring up happened nearly a decade later in 1874. And this is interesting because the man involved was not a tunnel worker at all. He had nothing to do with the tunnel. Frank Webster, a local to northern Berkshire County, left for a day of hunting and didn't return home that night. This obviously concerned his family and friends, and it concerned them even more when he didn't show up the next night either. The town gathered together and went out searching for him in the woods. They found him wandering around in a state of hysteria. After being brought home, fed, and rested up, he shared his story. Frank had gone hunting like he'd done 1,000 times before when he stumbled upon the entrance to the tunnel. Suddenly, a cacophony of voices called out to him, ordering Frank to enter the tunnel. According to him, without control of his bodily movements, he entered the tunnel. Deeper, and deeper he goes before his rifle is yanked from his hand and struck over his head. According to Frank, he woke up just a few moments before the search party discovered him, in the middle of the woods, without his rifle and with no recollection of what occurred after entering the tunnel. We ventured a little ways into the Hoosac Tunnel that night, but ultimately decided not to push our luck on what is still a very active railway and venture too deep. Fortunately for us, and unfortunately for you, nothing we observed that night was particularly out of the ordinary. That was a small glimpse into the inside of the Hoosac Tunnel. Owen, how did you feel in there?
Felt weird. It was eerie.
We didn't hear anything. We didn't see anything. I don't think I felt a dread or a chill necessarily. Huber, what about for you?
That was pretty cool.
The universe gave the Hoosac Tunnel every reason not to exist. Perhaps it's still punishing us for it in some ways. But it does exist. And is it marvelous? Did man realize he couldn't move mountains and say, "Let's go through it then"? Right here, take a look at this. Sneakers, boots. That's called thinking.